Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope Worldwide. Today I have very special guests with us, Dr. Jorge Valdes, all the way from Florida. Welcome, George.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
Do you want me to refer to you as Dr. George?
You can call me whatever you want.
Okay.
I can't get my wife to call me doctor, so it's fine. Not a problem.
Well, I'm used to you as George because I've only seen you once so far, and
Really?
that was on Cocaine Cowboys.
On Netflix. Yeah, it's been extremely popular. I don't know. I think it was like trending second in Australia.
Oh, I know. It's crazy over here. And what a wild show.
Yeah, it really, really was. They tried to get me to do that for 3 years, the
Wow.
producers, but they did an amazing job. And, because it was important for me, we see a show like that, and for whatever reason, I don't know about Australia, but in America, people are just enamored with narcos. I hate it. I wish I had never lived that life. I wish I never heard of a narco ever in my life again. Even though, disclaimer, I do watch Narcos myself and are entertained by it, especially because I look at it from a different point of view to know that most of it is just cinematic, makeup.
Yeah.
But I did not want to do Cocaine Cowboys Kings of Miami because, I look at that show and I'm a great believer that to show great amount of change and forgiveness, you guys show a great amount of sin, great amount of horrific life. So I agree that you have to show the glitter and the stuff that people want. But what I really love about these two producers, Alfred Spellman and Billy Corbin and David Sidnick, was that they were true to the story. They know the story better than anyone in the world, right? Because they Miami boys, they lived it. But they were also true to the fact of showing the pain and the anguish, and that's not a life. Because my fear is twofold. You see a young kid, 13 years old, say, I'm going to drop out of high school and become Jorge Valdes, become a millionaire. Chances are he'll never make it. Or worse yet, a mom looks at that show and wonders, why are people making such, a fuss about something that she had to bury her son because of drugs? So I always want to make that right up front that I am extremely repentful. I wish I'd never done it. I can't take it back.
Yeah.
I don't do what I do today to make up for what I did.
Yeah.
I do it because I feel it's what God's called me to do, to give somebody hope, and hopefully some other young man will not become Jorge Valdes.
Well, the greatest part about that show, and I watch a lot of that stuff because, as we were talking about previously to the interview, that I've been involved in the world of alcohol and drugs, and I help a lot of people battling drug addiction. So I'm very interested in those types of shows. But it was very, very, even though it was such a wild show, it was very heartbreaking. And then out of nowhere comes an amazing story of hope, and it was you.
Yeah, and you know what? And I thank God for the producers being true to that, because neither of them are religious. And I believe that, listen, to be a good human being, you don't have to be religious, right? You don't have to be a Christian, you don't have to be anything. I know some atheists that are better human beings than a lot of so-called Christians, right?
Yeah.
But they were true to the story. They could have left it at the glamour and the glitter, and everybody loved it. It was a wild story, but they were true to the fact that, listen, at the end it shows, except for me, most of them are dead or in prison. And it's sad. It really is sad because we started something that we believed was not doing any harm to anyone. As you well know, I mean, like you said, you were involved in a life of drugs and alcohol. It's like alcoholism, right? I have a brother who was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And one drink is too many, and 1,000 bottles is not enough.
Yeah.
And it's sad because I've been a public speaker for a long time, and I've done large stadiums and large events. And I mean, I remember, I remember two incidents that broke my heart, that I cried. One was a girl bringing her little boy that looked like he had some serious birth defect and saying, "Would you pray for my child?" And I'm sure, what can I pray for? And she said, my baby was born in the toilet of a crack house, did not die because the toilet didn't flush. I mean, think about this. That
Well,
just broke my heart.
yeah,
Number one. Number two was a grandma coming to me and said, until I listened to you speak, I had given up on life because all I ever asked God is to protect my family, my grandchildren. And I've lost three of them to drive-by shootings.
yeah,
So when you do a series like this and you show, the wildlife and the millions of dollars and the wild parties, but you got to show that there's a lot of pain along the way. We
yeah,
left a lot of hurt,
yeah,
and I'm glad that at the end, especially in episode 6, the producer did an amazing job. Netflix did an amazing job because a lot of the streaming medias can take something like that might have like a religious kind of tone and just delete it out. Netflix had final edit rights to it,
wow,
so they could have left all that out and just. But Netflix was really, I applaud them. They were really great. It's not a religious show by no means, but at the same time, it shows the pain and the anguish
yeah,
that life brought about.
yeah. Well, I was crying at the end when I saw you in front of all the prisoners, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's my heart, to help the people that have fallen to the bottom of life and they
You
need
know,
a hand to get back up again.
exactly. And to me, it's even personal because when my young middle son was 16, Christmas Day, he overdosed.
Oh, really?
And if the rescue had been 5 minutes later, he would have died. And
Oh,
here's a young kid that was at the age of 16 addicted to Oxycontin drugs and, started doing drugs with the mother of a friend of his whose husband was a dentist.
wow.
And, I got the call from his mom. He's dead. He's dead. He's dead. But by God's grace, he did not die. But, he went to a rehab program, Teen Challenge. I don't know if you know of a
Yeah,
program like that in
team
Australia.
challenge over here.
Yeah, I sat on their national board. I love them. I think they're just amazing how they transform lives. And he went through there for a year and came back, got a hold of him, changed his life around. He had gone 2 days to high school in 2 years.
Wow.
So he ends up finishing high school in a year. And then he comes to live with me and his life changed. He said it was the hardest thing he ever done in his life. But today, he lives in the island of Malta. He makes $300,000 a year, and he's a millionaire. He's 32 years old. He passed his CPA the first shot. He's an
Oh,
amazing young man married to a gorgeous young woman with an amazing grandchild. And I tell people, listen, there's no bad kids. You know that.
yeah.
It's just sometimes it's just out of control parents, right?
Oh,
And so my mission, I got out of prison, as you know from the episode, and when I was in prison, I went and I got another bachelor's degree, a master's, got out and finished a Ph.D. Could not put 5 kids through college or 6 kids with a professor's salary, so I started a company and built it into a multi-million-dollar company. And I retired at 56. You know, because when I speak, I tell people, when the pages of history are written, will history ever remember your name? I guarantee you, history will never remember me because I was, the original king of Miami. History will not remember me because of all the millions of dollars that I made and the gorgeous women that I dated. None of that. I pray that history remembers me because I made a difference in some people's lives.
yeah.
That's what's
The
important.
ultimate. The ultimate. So, George, you made a good point there where you said that no, kids aren't born bad. And so, can you take me back to your childhood and what led you into, because I'm sure nobody wakes up when they're a kid one day and goes, oh, I'm going to be, I'm going to lead a drug cartel. I'm going to be, America's biggest drug smuggler. But what led you into that life?
Well, neither did I, right? I never in a million years would have imagined that because I was the least likely human being you ever met to have joined a drug cartel. I was just a young kid chasing what I call this pseudo American dream,
Right.
which is a fake. Not too long ago, I wrote a blog that I said, I'm 21 years old. I make millions of dollars a month. I have mansions, jets, $1 million cars. I date the most beautiful supermodel, and I want to die. And basically, for me, was, growing up very poor, was that I would be happy. I would be somebody when I had X, when I had money, power. But I was a nerd. I went through, I was the youngest employee of the Federal Reserve Bank in Miami. I worked full time in the day and went to school full time at night.
Right.
Graduated, left the school, university, top of my class. And then I got hired. My accounting professor asked me to come work for him, and he would give me office secretary, all that stuff. And, my dream was that whenever I had achieved certain amount of prestige or power or money, I would be somebody, because before that I was nobody. And it's what society teaches us. It's a lie, right? It teaches that when you have X, you'll be happy. X, you'll be happy. But I tell a lot of kids I talk to, I said, listen, 99.99 of you will die trying to reach them, will never reach where I did. And if you ever do, you'll realize joy and happiness is not there. So I ended up, like I detail in my book, Coming Clean. I left. I went to work for this accounting professor. The first little business he gave me was a little grocery store. And I started to do the books for them and soon realized they were drug dealers. Now, I was the ultimate nerd. I had never done all the alcohol I drank in my life by the age of 21 fit in a little bitty teacup. Never did drugs, never did alcohol, never did nothing. I worked full time and studied full time. And I crossed the line. I'm going to give you the cliff notes. I want your readers to read the book, but or it would take us hours for me to tell you the whole story. But I tell people I drew lines and I had a vision. I had a very clear vision how my life was going to be. I was going to graduate from the uni at 20. I was going to take a couple of years to go to save money to go to law school. Graduate from law school 24, 25, be a millionaire 30, be somebody then. Well, I found a shortcut. And unfortunately, like I tell my kids, shortcuts will lead you to death. And I crossed the line that I said I never would. And the problem is, like with everything in life, you know how it is. Nobody starts drinking a gallon of vodka, right? They're going to die. Nobody starts shooting an ounce of heroin or doing an ounce of cocaine. They die. We start a little bit, and then that's not enough, and a little more, and that's not enough. And before you know it, you become a full-fledged alcoholic, drug addict, or you die. And that's what happened with me. Within 6 months of crossing the line, I was U.S. head of all operations for a group that became the Medellin Cartel. If you look at Cocaine Cowboy Kings of Miami, I'm the one that got all those kids started. I mean, if you remember, there was, I think, first episode when they talk about the big Video Canary operation where 125 people were indicted. Well, those 125 people were all selling grams and ounces of disco. I already was bringing in 800 kilos for 2 years, 800 kilos a month for 2 years, making $1 million, 2 million at the age of 21. And they didn't even know my name. They didn't even know I existed. It was my attorney who turned me in. But, we ran it like a business and we thought we were not hurting anyone. But at the end of the day, that's the thing with life, right? Even yourself, like even whenever you were drinking, I'm not hurting anyone. Well, that's not true. The least person you hurt is yourself. You hurt everybody around you, everybody that loves you. You destroy them. And you destroy those that end up wanting to be like you or copying you or,
It's a lie, isn't it, that people tell themselves along the way, or either that or delusion sets in and it enables us to keep going on that journey. And I didn't set out to be an alcoholic, like you said. My greatest dream was, because I come from a very musical family with parents and grandparents that were professional musicians. And my greatest dream was to be a jazz pianist and an actress. And I thought I'll go and work and save up some money to get me to the conservatorium, and then ended up 18 planning to take my life, and in 12 step rooms at 18. But life had a different path, and so I've made the best out of that, as you have, by sharing our story and being on the ground with the people that have really suffered in life and struggled and need hope.
No, without a doubt. And like people say, how do we change, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes it means hitting rock bottom. The
yeah,
danger of that is that some people die
yeah,
while they hit rock bottom. You know, we change the day that we realize we need help. We just need help.
yeah,
And I remember when I was trying to leave the cartel. I mean, I had millions. I didn't need to do that. And I had this friend of mine that used to come and visit me all the time. I was in the quarter horse business. I was the largest breeder in the country. And he used to bring some of his mares to breed to my stallion. And I used to ask him, I said, "Hey, Lazo, how did you quit?" And I never forgot what he would always say to me. He said, "George, it's like being pregnant, buddy. You're either pregnant or you're not.
yeah,
The day you decide enough,
yeah,
you got to change your surroundings. You got to leave that life behind. And then you got to tell yourself, because it's not an easy road. I don't know your story, but I guarantee you, I know how painful it was and how many times you wanted to go back, because that's the easy way, right? But for me, what worked was telling myself, I can't go back to that.
yeah,
I am better than that. I
yeah.
was created to be much better than that.
That's right.
So I don't know what's ahead of me. It doesn't look very glamorous. It doesn't look very exciting. But I know one thing: whatever I do, I'm moving forward, because I can't go back.
Yeah,
Because back is only going to lead me to destruction.
yeah,
It's going to lead me to death. And that's where we eventually end up. We destroy everybody around us. We destroy all relationships around us. And at the end of the day, we end up destroying ourselves. So when we're blessed to be able to make a change, and like I tell people, listen, we're not defined by our past. That's a lie. There's hope, there's redemption,
yeah,
there's a God that loves us and forgives us.
yeah,
Now, is it going to be easy? Hell no, it's not going to be easy. When I made my change, it went from bad to horrific. But like I said, I couldn't go back,
yeah,
and I kept moving forward, one little step at a time. And then it all began to take notice. It began to make sense. And then I started to find meaning. I started to find joy, and just had to keep telling myself, listen, I just cannot go back. Wherever I go, it ain't going to be back.
that's
So
great. When you were walking that life, so I can imagine that it's like a tightrope, and you're up high so much of the time. You talked about all the the fancy cars, all the money, the flying all over the world, dating supermodels and everything. At that time, did you have a sense in the back of your mind that this could all come crashing down tomorrow? I could be assassinated, I could be caught. Or did you put that way out of your mind and just keep going ahead, thinking that nothing would ever really go wrong?
well, here's the best thing. I was hoping that I would get killed.
Wow, really? Tell me more about that.
So you get to a point where you think your happiness is going to be that next car, and you look around, you have $1 million worth of cars, and you're miserable. See, every single human being, you, me, there's two things that we're going to do. We're going to lay down at night and look at the ceiling, and we're going to wake up in the morning and look at a mirror. And then we're going to ask ourselves, do we like what we see? And when we realize that we do not like what we see, for me, it was like, remember, I woke up every day with someone saying that we're going to kill me. So, and
Okay.
I didn't care. I did not care. Why I didn't care? Because I really didn't care about my life. I was miserable
Yeah.
because I had reached the zenith, the pinnacle of what was supposed to give me joy. And I looked around, and I adore my mom. I worship my mom. And I treated women like garbage. Not, I didn't physically abuse them or nothing, but there's a lot of ways of abuse, as you well know, that don't have to be physical, in just how we treat. I mean, my wife is the love of my life. I mean, I have her on a pedestal. We've been married 24 years now.
Oh,
26 together. And my first two marriages didn't last 3 years altogether. I couldn't stand them. And they were all gorgeous. My first wife was a supermodel and was a movie star. And, because people think that when we date a beautiful woman, she's going to make us happy. Well, I tell people is like, when that's all there is in your relationship,
yeah,
then at the end of the day, you're sick of it, right?
yeah,
We have to find joy within ourselves, with ourselves. I tell people that I was sexual. I had a sexual addiction, the only addiction I ever had in my life. And when I got arrested the second time and I had given my life to God, I went celibate for 7 years. Now, did I ever think in a billion years I could do that? Hell no.
wow,
Impossible.
yeah,
My prayer when I met my wife, who's just an amazing holy woman, was, being transparent. Lord, do you think I can have sex and be satisfied with just one woman? Because that's how my mind had been corrupted.
yeah,
And my wife and I she's unbelievable. She looked at me one day when we first met and she's like, look, my mom cleans houses. My father's a waiter. I have nothing to give a man but what God gave me. So if that's what you want, fine. If not, find another woman. And we dated for 2 years and we were celibate for 2 years.
wow.
And it was amazing. It was
Wow.
amazing because here I thought, impossible. I've been with all these women that were porn actresses, that were supermodel, that have a lot of street experience. And
Yeah.
here's a girl that's never been with a man. And I'm like, how the heck is she going to make me happy? But you know what? Our joy is not in our intimacy. And our intimacy is a byproduct of the joy that we enjoy in our relationship. And it's greater than it was with 10 porn actresses. I'm
Yeah.
being very, very transparent in your show. I hope you don't mind. But
Oh no,
you know,
that's okay. Everything gets talked about here. That's great. That's what we love.
I'm transparent. I don't hold anything back. And because I've lived, I lived a life that very few people ever live.
Exactly.
But I look at my wife now and I wake up every day next to her after 24 years and I'm more in love every day.
Oh.
Every day. And the thought of spending a day without my wife breaks my heart.
Oh.
Now think about it. I dated the most gorgeous women that walked this earth and I couldn't stand any of them.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and I tell that to my kids.
All about
I say,
what's in here, isn't it?
It is. And it's what we share together. We share a tremendous faith. And I mess up all the time. I used to always pray, Lord, I want to be the best husband in the world and the best father. And I kept messing up. And I was frustrated as hell. And I had a mentor. We all have a mentor. Yeah. I had a mentor and I went to him. His name is Phil Nagle. Just loved the mentor to death. I said, Phil, look, I don't know what the hell to do, brother. I'm just like, I can't make this. No matter how much I want to be the best father, the best husband, I just can't do it. And he's like, yeah, because you're praying the wrong thing. I said, why didn't you do this? Instead of praying to be the best, why didn't you pray that today you can be a little better husband and just a little better father? Damn. And I said to myself, crap, that easy? Yeah, a little better I can do. So if I'm a little better today and a little better tomorrow, in a year, I'll be a hell of a lot better. And that's what I did. And we have an amazing relationship. She's everything that I breathe. We have two amazing children together. She raised my 4 other children from prior marriages. They love her as their mom. My granddaughters love her as their grandma. And it's amazing. It's different.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And with God, all things are possible. That's been my experience as well. George,
yeah.
what was your hardest day?
My hardest day, besides figuring out what car I was going to drive that day.
That's that.
So, it's funny because I had a mother that was unbelievable, and my father were my best friends. And I tell people my mother was the best at tough love because my mother did not, number one, they lived and died in the same house they bought when they came from Cuba. And I used to be mad at them. I'm like, I got whores living in $1 million mansions, and here you live in a $20,000 home, and they refused. But my mother never wavered, letting me know what I was doing was wrong. But then at the same time, immediately she would like, what do you want to eat tonight? So she let me know how she felt, but never stopped being my mom. And I tell people, my bodyguards used to laugh, and they're like, you spend all this money protecting you, because when during my times in Miami, it was considered the most dangerous city in the world.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, it
absolutely.
wasn't no kids play.
Yeah.
And they would say, you spend all this money, we protect you, we do all this, but everybody knows that you're gonna go home and eat at your mom's house every day
Wow.
whenever you're in town. So all they gotta do is wait for you. And I'm like, man, you know what? I'd rather get killed by some shooter than have my little 5 foot mother open, letting me know how she feels, because I didn't come home to eat with her.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
the hardest thing for me was seeing all these people make me feel like I was God. And deep down inside, like I said, when I look in the mirror, I hated myself. When I went to bed at night, I just hated my life, and pretend that I was happy, that I was the king of Miami. When inside, I was just a wretch. I was just miserable.
Yeah. What was the light bulb moment that really changed your life? That aha moment. Obviously, you were caught and ended up
When we
in jail,
started,
but we all
when
have
we start,
a moment that's really a life-defining moment that we wake up and we go, "I've got to do things differently." That light bulb moment.
when we started in the cartel, like me and 4 other people were the original members of what became the Medellin cartel. We were there before Pablo Escobar, before any of these people even existed. And it was a business for the rich and famous, right? None of us used drugs. So we felt like, hey, we're not hurting anyone. I went to prison. I mean, I crashed in Panama. I was tortured for 29 days, bled for 5 years every time I went to the bathroom, was charged with heading the largest drug conspiracy in the history of America, and sent out to prison for 15 years, which I served 5. And, you know, when I came out, the world was different.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I remember my godfather telling me, son, if you have to carry a gun to deal with someone, you have no business dealing with that person. Well, when I came out, I needed to carry submachine guns, not guns. And it wasn't what we started, and it was different, and it was different type of people. But the really, so I've been wanting to change. I wanted to leave for a long time, because the worst part was I was doing nothing at this time. I was making $1 million a month for simply saying, send the airplane, don't send the airplane. I didn't see drugs, I didn't see anything. So, anyways, it was a time that I detail in my book, Coming Clean, where my ex-wife drops off my little girl, who was the love of my life, and she drops her off at my ranch, and I was partying with some beautiful movie stars, and I told my bodyguards, don't leave her out of her room, and she got out of her room, and she began to knock in the door to my bedroom, which was enormous, and she started saying, "Daddy, it's Crystal. Daddy, it's Crystal." And I felt that was the moment where I just got broken, where I started to shiver, because he was the only thing that was sacred in my life and holy. I couldn't open the door to let her in. And it's almost like if you have a child on a boat drowning, and you're touching their fingertips and you can't hold on to them.
Mm.
I told all the people to leave out the window, and I went to the shower, and I tried to scrub the filth off of me, and I couldn't. And an hour passed, and I thought that she had gone to bed. And I went outside to get water, and she was by the floor crying. And that was the day. That day I said, I'm done. My life will change. And I had no idea what that meant. I mean, there's no formula out there. There's nothing you can Google. I want to change my life from being a drug dealer to not being one. How do you do it? Basically, like I tell people, is all I knew was that I needed to change, and I was going to change. And if that meant that if I'm going south, I'm just going to go north. If I'm going east, I'm going to go west. And I walked away. I made the phone call and walked away from the cartel, knowing that I would be killed within a month or two. But I couldn't care less. I wanted out of that life. I wanted out of that world. And I wanted to be different, to be the person that my mother and dad educated, the person that they raised, the kid that they raised with tremendous principle, honor, and integrity, not the scum of the earth drug lord that I had become.
Yeah.
And I did, and I walk away, and it was a hard change. It was a hard change.
That's a beautiful story. Your daughter really saved your life, didn't she?
Like the Bible said, out of the mouth of children I will speak, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And I was an atheist at this time,
Yeah.
hardcore atheist. I didn't believe in anything. I believed in myself. I didn't believe in nobody. But I just know that I needed to change. That's not who I had become, was not who I was. And I think that we all do, right? To a certain extent. I mean, I was never an alcoholic or drug addict, but I'm sure you can probably relate to the fact that you get to a point in your life where you realize this is not me. This is not who I am. I need to change.
Yeah.
And then you got to make a change. And the first thing is you got to leave your environment. You got to move out.
100%. Yeah.
And you got to change friends, because if the friends you had were the friends that helped you participate in the life that is leading you to death, they're not your friends. It's BS. Listen, I was surrounded by thousands of people who said they would die for me. When I went to prison for 10 years. Not a single one was there.
No.
They all left. They almost all look, yeah, they look like Olympic runners.
Yeah.
I mean, they just took off. And
Right.
who was there? It was my mom, my dad, and my brother.
Yeah.
That's who was there.
Wow.
And so, it just it's it's hard to explain rock bottom. How do you reach rock bottom? I don't know if there's an explanation, but I know this. Everyone that's there knows it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm sure you knew when you got to the point that you said, this ain't me.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And look, I tell people, there's a God that forgives. You're not defined by your past. You can become whoever you want to become. But the consequences of our choice are going to be there. And we're going to pay for them.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy, but then nothing good is easy in life.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So, George, after you, as we'll be wrapping up shortly, but after you made that decision, you had that light bulb moment with your daughter. You said you knew you were going to be killed. You mentioned before that you were tortured for many days. Did that come after you made that decision to get out?
No, I crashed over the jungles of Panama in 1979. I was 23 years old. And I was betrayed by General Noriega, and I was tortured for 28 days to the point where I pissed blood every time I went to a bathroom to pee. And so that was before I went to prison. But I just couldn't care less. When I made that decision to change my life, I was living a good life for 3 years. I mean, I still had millions from my drug dealing. And then the government came, and it was statute of limitations were about to run out. And they just were not about to let me just walk away into the sunset. There was a strike force team that knew exactly how much money I had. And they came to me and they're like, little money, lots of time, lots of money, little time. And I'm like, do you know how much I got? And because I really didn't even know how much I had. And they did. They knew how much toilet paper we bought. And I had to forfeit everything I had to them. But see, 3 months earlier, so I left the cartel, and for 3.5 years, I'm living this normal life that you want to say, but I had a person that I had hired to teach me karate, and he began to witness to me. Right. And like I said, I was an atheist. I didn't want to hear it. But it wasn't what he said to me or how he read the Bible to me that made a difference in my life. I couldn't care less about any of that. It was that I saw this man and his wife, who I love dearly, live full of joy and happiness in what I thought it was a very crappy little world. Here I lived in a multi-million, $40 million ranch, and they lived in a $40,000 home. And they were happy, and I was miserable.
Yeah.
He was married to her, and she was 40-some years old and was madly in love, and I'm dating 20-year-old supermodels, and I hate them. How the hell does that work?
Yeah.
And it was July 1st of 1990. And my divorce was final from my ex-wife. And I see her dragging my little baby girl, who was my whole life. And she's crying for me. And I went into my room, and I remember that moment just like today. I went in there and I'm like, God, I don't believe you're real. That's number one. Number two, if you are real, you're looking at me and saying that, George, you're so bad. I don't want you up here. You stay down there. But number three, if you are the reason that man is full of hope and joy and happiness, save me or kill me. Because I'll spend the rest of my life telling the world what a fake you are. Well, my life went from bad to very, very bad. 3 months later, I was arrested because the government could not stand that I had retired and they had not caught me. So they wanted everything I had, and I forfeited. I forfeited everything, went back to prison for another 5 years. And I remember when it really dawned on me, the minute I forfeited all my assets to them, excuse me, I went back to my cell, and I hear this other inmate say, Milky Way, Milky Way, Milky Way. And I'm like, dude, why are you making so much fuss? And he's like, because this is the only time you get to buy Milky Ways. You know, they only sell it once every 2-3 months. And this is how we compensate for the hunger. And I'm like, well, how much? He said, $1. And that's where it really hit me. I'm like, holy crap. 2 hours earlier, I was worth over $60 million. I don't have $1 to buy a Milky Way right now.
Wow.
And I went back to prison, but I started to study. I started another bachelor's in Bible. Then I started half of my master's from Wheaton College. I was released. I finished my master's. I was accepted at Loyola University in Chicago to do a Ph.D. Graduated. I was one of 5 Hispanics with a Ph.D. in Bible. And then my dad died, and I was missing him terribly. And I'm like, you know, he never gave me anything, but he gave me his presence. And I looked at my wife. I said, I'm leaving my teaching career, which was my passion, and I'm going to move to where they live and be a full-time dad. How are we going to earn a living? I said, got to provide. And we started a little company from scratch, from nothing, cleaning houses, taking water out of people's houses. And I built it in 10 years into a multi-million-dollar national, international company.
Wow.
I retired at 56 and dedicated the rest of my life to just helping people. I live a good life. I drive a Rolls Royce, so I'm happy. But, you know, we send 65,000 books to prisons.
Yes,
and just so that people can have hope. Yeah. They can find hope. Because if my story can make the difference between someone spending eternity in hell or with Christ, then it's still been worth it.
Yeah. So, George, what do you talk about with the prisoners?
You know, I don't go to a lot of prisons. Okay. I go to one prior to COVID, because now I was going there every year for the last 23 years. And it was a place in Angola, Louisiana, which was called the bloodiest prison in the history of America. Me and a friend of mine built the only Catholic chapel inside any United States prison. It's gorgeous. And basically, you know, what I tell them is that they're not defined by their past.
Yes.
And even in a place like that where no one's going home, right? Because most people are they're sentenced to death or life in prison. There's another life. And not that be happy that you're going to die here and you have no hope of going home, but there's just a lot that we can do while you're even in prison. There's a lot that we can do to impact our children. People ask me, how come your children are so successful? My oldest son, by the time he was 13, I had been in prison 10 years. My next 3 middle children, one a lawyer, one a millionaire CPA tech controller, and the other one has a master's in education. By the time they were 7 years old, I had been in prison 5 years. All 4 of them come from a broken home.
Wow.
Yet they're really successful today. Why? Because I had a vision for them. And even in prison, I impacted their lives. I was involved in their life. Yeah, I was in prison. I wasn't there physically, but they knew that I was there mentally.
Yeah.
And they knew that I was there spiritually. And I spent a lot of time investing in their lives, even from prison. Sometimes we are in the worst prison, and yet we are free, right? Our body's free in the streets, but we're in prison, right? We're in prison to sin. We're in prison we're in bondage to so many things. And we might be home with our children, but we're not home. Our body's there, but that's all there's there.
Yeah.
And,
Love and
people think that
encouragement.
they have to do this and that and spend all these millions of dollars to make their kids happy. I'm here to say one thing. There's only one thing our children want, our presence, and it's free.
That's great. I love that. So as we close up now, George, what would be your message for the world?
My message for the world is we are not defined by our past. There is hope. There is redemption. There is a God that forgives people and will give you a new life. And at the same time, that we can make a difference in the world. It doesn't matter how many times we've fallen. What really matters is how we get back up. And yes, we will pay for the consequences of our choices. But at the end of the day, those consequences will equal to nothing compared to the joy that we will have by being a new person. I want to see, I'm tired of seeing in America 50 so much percent of children growing up without a father. I'm here to tell men, be a real man. Having testicles doesn't make you a man. Be involved in the life of your children. Love your wife, honor your wife. It is held not a lot better on the other. Listen, it's definitely not greener on the other side of the fence. We all have problems, we all struggle. But if you have faith, and if you base your relationship, your marriage, your home, your children on a God that loves you, then trust me, you will overcome all kinds of odds. I did. And it's all about our mindset, right? It doesn't matter how we look at the world. What matters is to what lenses we look at the world. And that's why I'm so excited that my lifelong dream just came live this week. Is I created, I get people begging me to coach them. And I've coached some very high net worth people and famous athletes, but I want to help everybody. I can't. I'm one person, right?
Yeah.
And I can't help others and abandon my family.
Yeah.
I made that mistake before. So I created the Narco Mindset Academy. And basically is where I'm teaching people about my mindset, how I look at the world,
Yeah.
how I have no fear, how I've overcome, how I built, a multi-billion-dollar drug empire, and yet I built a multi-million-dollar legitimate business, how I overcome tortures, how I've raised some amazing children, how I have a great marriage. That mindset that I have that took me 65 years. And so people sign up, and every month we give them lessons. And the third Thursday of the month, I go live, questions and answers, and try to help people to really zone in and to become the best that they can be. I just recently got an email from a young man that said, a year ago, my life was destroyed. And I saw some of your talks and I paid attention. I implemented in my life. Today, I have a better job. I still struggle, but my life is full of joy. I have a better marriage, a better home. I'm a better father. So that's my whole mission, to use the pain that I've gone through to just make it just a little better world. So that when I die, perhaps the world will be just a little better than when I left it.
And the rest of your life is going to be the best of your life.
It really is. And it doesn't matter how long, right?
Yeah.
So
it sounds like you're really just getting going now.
Yeah, and I'm 65 now.
Yeah.
I'm retired. I'm working harder than I ever worked in my life, except before I worked for money. Now I'm working for free.
Yeah. Well, something I always say is today's the first day of the rest of your life. And despite the past, the rest of your life can be much greater. Well, thank you, George. It's been an absolute honor to talk to you from Australia, and all the best with everything. Do you have a book there that you can hold up?
As a matter of fact, I do have one that I worked on a lot, which is the one that I'm going to use in this www.narco mindset academy.
Yeah.
But it's this book, and this is the book that I used after my son overdosed to help him become a millionaire now and living the life that he's living, with a gorgeous wife and an amazing baby. And he asked me, he said, Dad, can you please write this principle? Because everybody asks me, how did I change? And I tell them, I
I'm
just
gonna
followed.
I'm going to get that book.
It's called the Narco Mindset Journal,
Okay.
and it's part of the what we're gonna do in the Narco Mindset Academy.
Well, all the best, George. Thank you so
God
much
bless
for
you.
joining us today. You too. And thank you, everyone. See you next time.